Welcome to the Aviation Marketing Masterclass, 6 prospecting techniques that really work in the aviation industry. This is our free webinar, and we go into more detail in our paid webinar for members only. Each of these targets your ideal customers. Each of these 6 can be used alone or in combination with others. So don't feel like you have to do all 6, but the more the better, of course. More is better, but you don't have to do them all. So what we'd like for you to do, and we'll talk about this as we go through this, is to mark the ones that are the most, are the easiest to get to between here and there, and then also mark one that's kind of a stretch for you. We'd like to have you choose 2 that you're really going to commit to doing by the end of this webinar, and I'd love to hear what those are as we go through this. So if you do this right, you will have as many good qualified prospects as you can manage well. And of course, managing customers well is a responsibility, right? It's happened before that we've been hired to work with a aviation company. We've gotten more prospects than they can handle easily, and we've had to backtrack just a little bit because we can't outstrip that ability a whole lot. You have to meet people's expectations. So you want to make sure that you're not outstripping that possibility. So just to introduce ourselves, I'm Paula Williams.
And I'm John Williams.
And we are ABCI, and ABCI's mission is
help all you ladies and gentlemen out there sell more products and services in the aviation industry.
Right. And most of you, if you've attended any of our events before, you know that I talk about 5 times as much as John does. But he is busy answering questions by text and facilitating the workshop. So he is definitely here, and you're getting the benefit of his brains as well. So first of all, let me tell you a little bit about how we came into aviation and some of the things that we did wrong because we did not know the 6 best ways to get new customers in aviation. Did we, John?
Not as a start.
Not to start with. So we started doing some cold calls. This is back when I was just coming from the finance industry, and I thought, oh, this is no big deal. We'll just call some of the people that we know need marketing services and let them know we're here, and they're going to be so glad to know that there is somebody that specializes in, at that time, we thought our specialty was going to be digital marketing or online marketing. Let them know that we're here, and they're going to be so glad to hear from us that we'll have no problem getting customers, right?
Yes, well, we learned one thing or two about that.
Right. That is not exactly how it worked. At the time, it was 2004, 2005. Nobody in the aviation industry was really that interested in digital marketing. They wanted to do things exactly the way they had been doing before. Also, the market had just tanked, so a lot of money had fallen out of the market. Nobody had any interest whatsoever in social media. So that did not work out so well. That didn't work out as well as we had hoped. So first of all, we learned that cold calls are not the way things are done in the aviation industry. And second of all, we learned that you have to meet people where they are, and you have to offer people something that they actually want, whether or not we know that it's something that they need, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So we thought this was going to be a whole lot easier than it was. We learned differently. So what we were doing was amateur prospecting. And what you're seeing here is, this is what amateur looks like, right? These kids have cute little fishing poles that they probably went to Walmart and they spent, their parents spent $5 or $10 on them. They have a minimum of equipment. They don't have a boat. They're just playing around. They're having a good time. And there's not a darn thing in the world wrong with this if you are just playing around and having a good time. So if you're indulging a hobby, then it's okay to have your brother-in-law build your website. It is okay to use free tools or cheap tools or any of those kinds of things. It is okay to just kind of dabble around and not really know where the fish are. You'll still have a fantastic afternoon. You will still catch a fish every once in a while, and things will go just fine, right?
Yep.
In fact, we know there's a gentleman that restores vintage aircraft, and he's retired. He doesn't need the money. He really enjoys what he does, and he only needs one customer at a time. So, does he really need a fancy schmancy website or a CRM or, a social media presence or any of those things? No, he doesn't. He gets by just fine, and there's not a darn thing in the world wrong with that. So I don't want to sound like I'm being insulting. I'm just saying that is not professional prospecting, right?
That's exactly correct.
Okay. So professional prospecting is different. You can see this here is what they call a trawler. It's a boat with a whole bunch of automated fishing poles. They got a lot of hooks in the water, and they've got hooks in different places. So, and they're also typically at different depths, so that they're catching different kinds of fish. This is also probably a person who has a thing called a fish finder, one of those electronic doohickeys in the boat that uses radar or whatever to locate fish. So, the more tools you add, the more professional grade tools you add to your arsenal, the better. And this doesn't necessarily equate to a lot more money, but in a lot of cases, unfortunately, the reality of the situation is that it does. So you do have to be willing to invest some in order to prospect well in the aviation industry. Would you agree, John?
Sure, of course.
Of course. So what you need to do really is figure out what equipment is important to you and how to get the best value on that. And in some cases, it doesn't really cost anything except time. But even so, time is not something that you just throw away. So you want to make really, really wise investments in really good technology. And so what we're going to be talking about today is those 6 hooks in the water. Now, what this trawling boat looks like, if we want to go from the absolute to the abstract.
The other way.
This right, abstract to the absolute. In marketing, we have a diagram that we typically use, and this is what our trawler looks like, is this phase 1 up here. And these blue thingies, pointy thingies, are hooks in the water. These are the ways that people get in touch with our company for the first time. And these are the ones that we're recommending as our 6. So if you've tuned in just to find this out, you can leave now. Just kidding. Actually, we're going to be talking about a lot of really cool stuff about how these things fit together and so on. So the ones that we've picked this year as the top tools of 2016 for prospecting in the aviation industry, and this is based on our experience with our own company and with the aviation companies that we work with. The ones that we're going to be focusing on for ourselves and our clients in 2016 are podcasts, webinars, trade shows and public speaking, Facebook ads, prospecting packages, and postcards. Now, I know everybody has a favorite that is not on this list. And everybody, we're going to get a lot of calls after this, and every appointment that we have with our clients after this webinar is going to be about you forgot X, Y, or Z. And no, we didn't. We actually considered all of those things. But some of them are really, really good at phase 2. Some of them are really, really good elsewhere in the process. And some of them have just been knocked off the list by one of these. So podcasts, webinars, trade shows and public speaking, Facebook ads, prospecting packages, and postcards. Now, what each of these has, which some of you are aware of and some of you may not be if you're new to our situation, is a call to action. And this is how you bait your hook. A call to action could be a tip sheet or an ebook or a video or any piece of content that people get in response to what you're offering them. So, if they're responding to a podcast, you'll notice if you listen to one of our podcasts, we'll often offer a tip sheet. Like the last tip sheet that we offered was, weirdly, 17 different calls to action that you can employ in the aviation industry. So that tip sheet, if somebody wants that, they have to enter their first name and their email address into a little form on a website. And then I get their contact information, and then I can market the heck out of them. I can send them advertising and other kinds of things because that's in the terms of service on our website. So same thing with any of these, with a webinar or a public speaking event or a Facebook ad, packages or postcards. You want to make sure that you are giving people a reason to contact you, and that reason cannot be buy my $10,000 product, right?
Well, it won't work. It could be a reason.
It could be a reason, but you'll do much better if you do something that is, you offer something that is a low cost and a low risk to both yourself and to your prospect, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So assuming that that everybody understands that process, actually, let's go into a questions slide. I'm sure there are some questions that we've gotten so far.
Well, I'm not going to use name. Well, should
Yeah,
I
use names, first names.
Okay. Well,
That's
Fred
safe.
says, why not email?
Fred, excellent question. Why not email? Um, because of the Can Spam Act, you cannot send unsolicited email to someone that you do not know. And the Canada Can Spam Act went into effect last year. And what was the fine on that? Do you remember, John?
Well, it gets a little more interesting up there. One unsolicited email will cost you 60 grand.
Exactly. So there's the legal issue. I've never heard of anybody in the aviation industry getting actually fined for this, but the practical issue as well, and there's an ethical issue. Um, a lot of folks don't like getting emails from people they don't know. That's one thing. Another thing is that most of the lists that you purchase from AirPack, JetNet, any of the mail order offices or anything else will not give you email addresses. Any of
That's
the
right.
associations will not give you email addresses because they don't like having their members spammed.
And
So
you don't know actually whether your email is a US email, Canadian, Mexican, because a lot of people out of country use Gmail, and a lot of people out of country register their domain names in the States, etc. So it's
exactly. So
taking a chance.
you don't know where they are, so you don't know what the legal problems might be. The other side of it is that it's not very effective. Most people who get an email from somebody they don't know, they just delete it. So, good question. We do highly, highly, highly recommend email marketing further along in the process, but not as a prospecting tool. Any other questions?
Marie
Okay.
says they use targeted cold calls and LinkedIn.
Okay. Um, LinkedIn is a fantastic sales tool. But it is not as targeted as Facebook, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later. It doesn't have as many data points that they're tracking, and also the advertising in LinkedIn is not quite as inexpensive and trackable. So, LinkedIn it didn't make our top six, and cold calls. I would argue that they're not cold calls if you're also using LinkedIn. So, you have a reason to be calling this person. You know their position, you know what company they're in, you have a reason to be calling them, in which case I would say it's probably not a cold call, but even so, you might have great luck at it. I kind of stink at cold calls, so good luck to you, and you're welcome to do anything you like. Don't say that you shouldn't be doing any of the other things. It just doesn't make our top six. Any other questions so far?
No, just a couple of comments, people.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's first talk about podcasting. We started podcasting in October of last year, and you can see what kind of a curve we've gotten as far as people listening to our podcast. I have never seen something grow that quickly in any other form of marketing that didn't require any money. So, there's not a lot of options there that don't require any money up front. And it is a pain in the neck to set up a podcast. There are some ways to do it using things like Blog Talk Radio and other things. We don't recommend those because they put advertising on your podcast. And since you want to put your own advertising on your podcast, or you want to advertise your own product or service using your podcast, we highly recommend that you post your own and do the hard work of setting it up technically using iTunes. And we've got if you contact me after the show and you want to know the outline of how we put that together, we can tell you that. But podcasting is our number one, and actually we've just started that this year. So you can kind of see how that works. We're showing you the math. One of the reasons for that is because of technology. When people are in their car or any other place actually where they have a gadget, they have a button that goes straight to iTunes or goes straight to podcasts. So they click that button and they type in their interest of aviation marketing. We are the only one that comes up because we're the only people that have a podcast in aviation marketing. In most of your professions, and I'm just, guessing here, that a lot of you guys are in aviation related professions. There are not very many podcasts out there. So there's a wide open opportunity. If you wanted to start a podcast, it is very likely you would be in a category of one. So people click their button, they're interested in aviation, and whatever your topic is, they're very likely to find your podcast right off the top of the bat. And then you have a captive audience for a half hour or however long your podcast is. Every other method that we know of, it's really hard to get people's attention for a half hour at a time. Okay, so questions about podcasting?
We got several.
I kind of figured.
So Andy's got a couple here. What is the overhead, time and money on running a weekly, I guess he means creating and exporting and a weekly podcast?
Okay. Overhead on a weekly podcast. It took us probably 10 hours to set it up the first time. But after that, it takes about, I would say it takes us about 2 hours a week.
Yes, because, well, what we do is we'll record the thing, and that takes on the order of 15 to 20 minutes. And then we download the recording to a computer and have somebody go through and clean it up, produce it.
Add the bumpers, the beginning and the end.
Yeah, because you have to have more than just people talking. You want a little bit of music, you want an intro and so forth and so on. And then you want something at the end that says, hey, come back next time and give us a review and so forth. And by the time you do all that, or have, in our case, have somebody do all that and then get it out there, probably, I think our staff's got it down to about 2, maybe 2.5 hours, depending on how long it is.
Right, exactly. And we get faster each time. So John and I are the bottleneck on that. We've got some people who are really, really good at producing. So, that's fantastic. And once you get the rhythm down, it's a lot easier. So about 2 hours is what I would say. And then you work back from there. All right.
Yeah, I have a frog in my throat. Sorry. Had a little bit of a go around with some bad food a day ago. Now,
the joys of aviation and traveling.
Let's see. What if your product is boring?
What if your product is boring? Good question. And that was Andy, right? Okay, so first of all, your product is not boring. I know your product is insurance, and insurance is never boring. Actually, any product has great stories behind it. There's always people you can talk to, experts that you can talk about. There's always great stories of when your product did or did not work really well, and so on. So, there's lots of stories that you can focus on. So that would be thing number one. And this is whether you do a podcast or a blog or anything else. You want to do a really great editorial calendar and brainstorm some topics.
So another question is, how large an audience do you need to do a podcast?
Okay. How large of an audience do you need to do a podcast? As many customers.
To make it worthwhile.
Okay. If you get one customer a week, would that be worth it to you? And who asked the question?
Bodajet.
Bert. Bert, would one customer a week be worth it to you? Okay, he says yes. Absolutely. So even if you only had, let's say, if you had 50 people a week listen to your podcast, which is not unreasonable, and then 1 out of 50 decided to hire you, that would be a pretty good ratio. If they're willing to spend an hour a week listening to you, then that's pretty reasonable. Cool. We need to move on.
We have another question.
One more? Okay.
How focused does the topic need to be for podcasting? As a company, there's an FBO, airline support, warbirds, air shows, etc.
Okay. What I would do with that is I would take your most interesting topic, in that case, probably warbirds and air shows, and make that kind of the focus of your podcast. And then you can always put in ads, public service announcements for your FBO and your airline support, or interview people as part of that and make that interesting.
And that
So
was Dave.
that was Dave. Okay. Did that answer your question, Dave? Okay, fantastic. All right, so we need to move on. And I know there are questions we're not getting to, and I apologize. We will answer them after the show. So, webinars. Obviously, it works for us since we are here. We get people's attention for an hour at a time. And we are able to convey some pretty good information. We are also able to use audio and video. We're able to get to know people pretty well, given the interactivity that's possible using the technology these days. And actually, we're going to try and be more interactive this year than we have in the past. So webinars work really well for us. And I'm going to give you some other examples. Aerostar did a number of workshops for aspiring pilots and answered questions, incoming questions. They took questions beforehand and just had Captain Santo answer questions on the podcast. And it was a great show and very informative. Tanis Aircraft Products, they do preheat products, which are kind of a technical thing. And they could show diagrams and they could show their test data and they could have their engineers walk through it. And it was just really, really cool. It's a great way to illustrate your product and explain how it's better than the alternatives. Vlog, they do aircraft digital records management, the maintenance logbooks for aircraft. And they can show concepts really, really well. You take your boxes and your binders and all your crap that you have your aircraft records in. They can organize and digitize it for you so that you're able to search the entire aircraft logbook in one swell foop, and that they're the only product that does that. The only way to really demonstrate that is to do it. So they were able to do that in a webinar, and it went over really well. I just saw one for Aviation. They were just illustrating some of their electronics products. And they have a weekly webinar talking about the new things that are happening in electronics and so on. So webinars are really, really powerful. Cool. Questions?
Fred says, how professional does the webinar have to be? None of us, well, now wait a minute. He can't be speaking for everybody. I don't think most of us, I'll say that, are professional speakers.
Exactly. So this is a case study of how unprofessional a webinar can be and still be effective, right?
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Okay, so I know we're not going to get to all of our questions. If you have questions about webinars or you want some help setting one up, we'd be happy to help you with that. There's lots of tools out now. There's lots of options and things like that. So you can use Google Hangouts, you can use Facebook Live sessions, you can use GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, which is what we use. And there's lots of other things, lead pages and all kinds of things that work really well. Trade shows and public speaking. That's another one of our favorites because it is, one, free, and two, actually saves you money. People will actually pay you, or at least, once you get well known for doing a couple of these things well, people will pay you to show up and speak, or at least will comp your registration fee, your hotel rooms, lots of things like that at events that you want to go to anyway.
And she's speaking from experience.
Absolutely. And the way that you get that done is you submit proposals when trade shows send for a call for speakers. And don't be daunted by the fact that these are kind of technical. They're always going to want them in a certain format and other kinds of things. Some of these shows, not very many people will submit a proposal, or at least a good one, for a call for speakers. So if you've got a great presentation or great educational presentation on a topic that is not a sales pitch, it has to be educational about your product or your subject matter area. it is not as difficult, especially for some of the smaller and regional events, to get chosen as a speaker for a breakout session or even for a keynote. Another thing you can do is put a Need a Speaker page on your website with topics and with clips, audio and video. And what that does is it lets people know that you are a decent speaker. You've done this before. They know there's not going to be crickets or sagebrush running through the room while you're doing your thing. So you don't, once again, you don't have to be a professional. Toastmasters always helps, but all you have to do is know something about your topic that is more than what everybody else does and be able to explain it well. So you can always put something together, rehearse well, and everything else. And then you get in a room where you got, maybe 100 people as a captive audience. And, you're able to usually give a call to action at the end, some kind of a freebie in response for their contact information. We did this at NBAA, where we offered our social media guide free to anybody who was attending who filled out a form on a social media page. So that worked really, really well. Okay, so public speaking, questions?
Marie, should you charge for speaking or do it for free?
Okay.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, you'll probably have to do it for free to start with. In fact, we do it for free a lot. There's two ways that ABCI gets paid for speaking engagement. One is with money, and we actually charge $2,000 a day for training when we go do a custom training for a company or something like that. Another way that we get paid is we need to have a pretty good assurance that we're going to get $2,000 worth of value out of that, given the prospects that are in the room and so on. So, if they can make the case to us that we will get $2,000 worth of advertising money that we would save, from doing that some other way. So if you've got a room full of 100 people, you get 60 people's contact information, which is pretty close to what happened at NBAA last year. Those 60 people, some number of them will become clients, and then it's pretty easy to recoup your speaker fees without charging for those, right?
True, which leads into the next question.
Okay.
It's two-part. Well, I'm going to put it in two parts.
Okay.
It's from Andrea, and she says, I'd like to know the list of events that will pay you for a speech, and so would we. And lots of conferences ask for you to pay to have a speaking slot. Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. And sometimes it's worth it. So, once again, you have to put the business case together of what are you going to get out of this deal? Are you going to have a captive audience that is worth it to you to get in front of for an hour? And can you convert enough of them to make it worth what they want you to pay? This is the same as any other advertising venue. It's perfectly legitimate to be a, what am I going to say? They give you an infomercial slot. So generally speaking, when you pay to speak, they give you a lot more latitude as far as giving a sales pitch, right?
Yes, they do.
If you are getting paid to speak, then they expect you to comply with their rules.
And promote whatever it is they're doing.
Exactly. So, when we're speaking for NBAA, we don't get paid, but they do comp our registration and our hotel room. So, that's definitely worth it to us. So, that's fantastic. Any other questions about, did that answer, well, first of all, Andrea, did that answer your question? Or I know it's kind of squishy. And we didn't give you a list of events that will pay for speech. Okay, great. What I'd suggest is going to aviationservicedirectory.com, looking at the events, and some of them will, generally speaking, the ones that will pay you to speak are ones that are sponsored by a corporation, and then you're kind of expected to toe the line and play by their rules, right?
Yeah. Here's one last comment / question.
Yeah.
And who is this?
Bert.
Bert, yeah. Says you guys are well set up, staff, webinars, etc. How professional do we have to be to come across as professional without all the bells and whistles?
Okay.
We don't have bells and whistles in here.
No, we don't have any bells or any whistles. But we have invested in a microphone, actually, that John found in the garage that was like 40 years old or older. We also have some sound equipment that we've invested a couple of $100s in, and so on. So there's lots of equipment that you could invest in, and if you do this a lot, it's definitely worth it. But what I would do is contact the venue and say, do you have a sound system? Do you have a mixer? And so on. The name of that website again is aviationservicedirectory.com. That's ABCI's directory. So we're plugging our own thing here, but that has a list of events on it. So you don't have to be that well set up to come across as professional, especially if they have all the toys for you.
Right. If you want to record, then you have to have your own recorder, and those things can be a little pricey. I think we just bought one for $600, but again, we put it on a stand out in front of everybody, and those who were in NBAA saw it, and we plugged it into their mixer, which had all of their wireless microphones, their music, everything else came into our recorder noise free, which is kind of nice. Plus, then it had other outlets. We recorded the panelists, we recorded the audience all on separate tracks.
Exactly. So you don't have to do all that. In a lot of cases, they will do it for you. So, okay. So Facebook ads, and I'm going to talk about a couple of things. There's in your notes, and you can print those out. There's a page that you can go to that has a really good little 2-minute video about how to work Facebook ads and some of the things that they can do for them. Now, I have to tell you that it really ticks me off to be giving a plug for Facebook, because I'm not a big fan of the company as a person. It's not my favorite thing. But as a marketing professional, it is my favorite thing. And the reason is because they track so many data points, and the advertising is so cheap to target all of the left-handed people with a multi-engine license in Ohio who fly a Mooney and have bought a car in the last year and so on. So, very specific data sets. You can advertise to as small of an audience as 10. So if you go to an event, for an example, and you get a list of 10 people, you can set up in Facebook, given their cell phone numbers and or their email addresses, a custom list that will advertise on Facebook only to those 10 people. There is no other place on the planet that has the technology that granular. And for aviation, where we've got such specific audiences, there's really no way to beat it. And that really upsets me to say that. Wouldn't you agree, John? I know it's not your favorite thing in the world either.
No.
Okay. So as an example, and then also when you run an ad, you can see, or when you run your Facebook page or any other data point on Facebook, you can see who, in this case, it's just who liked our page. And you can look up a lot of different types of information about them. So from this, we know that people who like our, this is ABCI's Facebook page, and this is our company page, 80% of them are men, 2% of them are 13 to 17, 17% of them are 18 to 24, 20% of them are 25 to 34. And, it's just really detailed information. And then if I wanted to drill down on another facet, like what is their income? What is their education level? Where geographically are they located? How many of them have jobs at Airbus? Any of those types of information that I happen to want to look at, I can find. And that's using the Power Editor in Chrome. If you're a nerd, you can do that in Facebook. If you are not a nerd, you can get somebody to do that for you. So it really is a super cheap way to do really targeted advertising. So any question about Facebook ads? No.
Must have answered them all.
Okay, either that or everybody is just so turned off by the idea of Facebook that it's something else. Okay. Now the next one, we had talked about the fact that most of our customer lists are pretty small. So if you have a really small customer list, and in one case we've got a lady who has a potential universe of customers of 65, just because her product is for people who are in a certain situation with an aircraft in a certain financial position, and that's all her service would be helpful for. And given that, if you've got a potential audience of 65, you can do a mailing that is $10 a person for less expensively than you could do a magazine ad or anything else. Or even if you only wanted to do 10 a month or something like that, you can really adapt this to your budget, and it works really quickly, and it also is very effective at getting past gatekeepers. So those 65 people that we know that are her customers are very, very well defended people. They're in financial institutions and they're in a certain position of risk management and things like that. So they have administrative assistants and other people who open their mail. Now, if they sent them a sales letter, it would never get to their desk, right?
Yeah, not at all. It wouldn't get past, it may not even get to their office before somebody grabbed it.
Exactly. So, given her circumstance, and a lot of you guys are in the same situation where maybe the people that you're trying to get to are very well defended, an email is not going to get to them on the first try. A podcast is probably not going to get to them on the first try, unless they're a commuter and a nerd and so on. A webinar may not get them on the first try, especially if they don't know you. They're not going to spend an hour, or they're not going to seek you out if this is the first time they've heard from you. You might get them on a webinar later, which would be great. A Facebook ad may not hit them the right way. A letter is certainly not going to hit them the right way. So a package can include, and this, we like to use the USPS standard boxes. This is the USPS standard small box. And what we did is we pasted a cartoon to the outside of the box that you can't see, and another cartoon to the inside of the box that you can see. So we're using every bit of available space that we can. We put in some case studies. We put in a card with some eye-catching, hopefully, information. And we filled the rest of it with Halloween candy. This was for a Halloween promotion that we did a while ago. So this actually got to people's desks because they usually have instructions to forward packages to the VP of whatever, whoever that person is. Their admin is not going to open a package. They're going to forward that to them. And it actually did get a lot of attention. The plastic spiders were commented on, when people called the sales guy and said, I got your box and I get your point now, because we made the other side of this black card of some bullet points about the product that we had targeted really carefully. So what you want to do is put your best marketing materials and your most targeted sales pitch in a box, and with whatever makes up the rest of that box. And you can use some, really great novelties. And I'm not sure if Shane's on the call. We talked about this in our masterclass the other day. Some different items that would be attractive to these folks, keychains and other kinds of things. Thank you, Shane. You like the Biscoff cookies in the box. That's cool. We do a coffee box with Biscoff cookies that, kind of is specific to the aviation industry. So there's lots of things that you can do, depending on the size of the box and depending on your target market. So we love those. Any questions about direct mail packages?
No, but one came in about Facebook after you got off that. We can discuss that later or whatever if you want. If you want to talk about that now.
Okay, what's the question?
It's what understanding do you have of Facebook dark posts?
Facebook dark posts. That is not something that I understand is used much for marketing. Mostly we're talking about the paid advertising because that does give you the option to use the Power Editor in Chrome. Dark posts, from what I understand, they are not necessarily meant to be seen by everyone. So, maybe we can have a conversation about that offline, because I don't know enough to sound good here. Okay, cool.
And what do you recommend in a package to presidents of companies, Sandra?
Okay, to the president of, the next question would be what kind of company? But everybody loves candy, right? Even billionaires love Rice Krispie treats. You really don't have to go too over the top here. with the time or the money, or anything that you do send either needs to be, I would say you want to go one direction or the other, really, really simple or really, really expensive. There's an old saying, I think it was Oscar Wilde said, even a billionaire loves a carameled apple, It's the simplicity is sometimes, and the thoughtfulness is really more important than any particular thing. We love using food because it is inexpensive. So your cost per box, can be under $10 a box, and you still make a good impression. And people are still happy to have heard from you if they get food in a box, they're going to open their next box, right?
Of course.
Of course. You can also use tchotchkes, the little highlighters or USB drives. We like using CDs, weirdly enough. A lot of people don't even have a CD drive in their computer, but they'll put it in their car. They still have a pretty high perceived value, those CDs. And you can do testimonials or product demos and other kinds of things on those. What other things did we put in boxes? Fish. We put fish in boxes. No, we haven't put fish in boxes.
No, we haven't. One of our clients has.
One of our clients has talked about it.
One of our clients wants to.
Exactly. That would be, Jean, if you're on, you may want to comment on that. Candy is always good. There's lots of things. So other questions about packages?
How much should I spend on a package?
How much should I spend on a package? Okay. We actually did a formula for this, and it is basically your customer acquisition cost, right? Of all of the marketing that you do over the course of a year, and how many new customers you get over a course of the year, you divide that number of how much you spent on marketing by the number of customers you got, or the amount that your customer spent, and that gives you the amount that you should be able to spend on a customer, right? Is some fraction of that. So you really have to do the math. If a customer is worth, like for a phase inspection, what was the cost on that?
Oh, for 172 is about $1,200.
Okay,
for
so
the 100 hour.
Let's say you're an MRO that does phase inspections on 172s, and your average transaction size is $1,200. Some fraction of that, you probably want to spend a little bit more on that box than you would if you're selling a $9.99 software download, right?
Of course.
Of course. But we can give you the precise math. It's actually in one of our programs. But in general, hopefully that gives you a thumbnail. Does that make sense?
To me.
Okay.
They haven't responded yet.
Okay, cool. Any other questions about packages?
Nope.
Okay, let's keep moving. Okay, postcards. And hopefully Jean's on the line. We're going to make you famous here. What we're looking for on a postcard is something that's visually arresting, that's going to get somebody's attention. And the reason we love postcards is because they don't come in envelopes. You don't have to get past that gatekeeper again. If you have a good enough headline and a good enough visual on your postcard, people are going to sort through their mail and they look at those things first. So, if you've got a great headline and a great visual, that really improves the impact of your postcard, right?
Even if they're sorting through the mail to throw stuff out, they have to look at it before they throw it out.
Exactly. And the other very important thing about any of these items that we're doing is, once again, that call to action, right?
Yes.
Okay. And sometimes we have to tweak that call to action. In some cases, you'll offer a report or something like that. If people don't go for it, it could be that the postcard is not correct. It could be that the call to action is not correct. Any of those things. So you want to make sure that, number one, you get their attention, and number two, you offer good bait. So if you do both of those things, that postcard is going to be successful, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So questions about postcards?
Can you give some other ideas about a good call to action?
Okay, Andy, if you have downloaded our last tip sheet, which was basically 17 examples of calls to action, just for the sake of convenience here, we'll tell you, a tip sheet is a good one, like 17 great calls to action. 5 reasons you shouldn't have your aircraft serviced by a stranger. I mean, lots of things that could be a good tip sheet. But yeah, download that tip sheet about calls to action to get meta. That's a good one. Okay.
And I've been told my postcards have too many words. How many is too many?
Okay.
The fewer the better.
No, not necessarily.
I'm asking.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So a postcard has to do its job, right? And the job is to, one, get attention, and two, convey that call to action. It should not do anything more than that. You shouldn't be trying to sell a product with a postcard. That's asking too much.
If you get lucky, you get lucky. But other than that,
right.
Don't try.
Right. So, it could be that you are asking too much of your postcard. You want something that is low cost and low risk. So it doesn't take a whole lot of words to sell your call to action.
I can give you a personal example. I bought an airplane because of a postcard. Not one postcard.
Mm-hmm.
There were 6 over about 8 months. Now, I was predisposed to buy an airplane because I wanted to buy an airplane.
Mm-hmm.
But it took 6 postcards because the first one disappeared and I forgot about it. Life gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think it happened in numbers 2 and 3. And on the 4th one, I said, I'm going to call this guy. And it somehow or another didn't connect. And by the time I got the 5th postcard, we were on vacation or something. Who knows? So number 6 came around and I said, to hell with it. And I went down there and I talked to the guy.
This is a family show.
And I, seriously.
Okay, right.
I had a family then. And,
yep.
And we bought the airplane.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so we're going to move along pretty quickly here. So basically, we have 6 hooks or six lines that we can hook.
My question box not rolled up, so we have some questions.
Okay, cool.
Things.
All right, so do you have a size recommendation for postcards? Honestly, the bigger the better, Tori. We really like to see those get attention. So, you want to be unusual. There are a lot of people that will offer the oversized or the jumbo size postcards, and those are usually worth the extra money to make that worth it. Okay, so moving along, professional prospecting is not just dipping one line in the water and dabbling around and hoping for the best. You really do need to invest in some professional equipment, get serious about it, invest your time, because customers are hard to come by and they have high expectations. There's a lot of competition in the market these days. And once again, we're not looking for the easy button. So again, that looks like that trawler, not like those kids with the fishing pole, right? Okay, so really quickly recapping: podcasts, webinars, trade shows / public speaking, Facebook ads, prospecting packages, postcards, and a call to action for anything that you do, right? Okay, so here's your checklist of things that you'll really want to do. Choose any 2 of these prospecting activities. And ideally, you're going to want to choose one digital and one traditional. So maybe you'll choose postcards and webinars. Use postcards to invite people to your webinars. That would be a great combination. But in the aviation industry, traditional has the benefit of being credible, while digital has the benefit of being cheap and also very high functioning. So you've got the audio and the visual and so forth. Next thing you need to do is create a great call to action. You want to measure your results as you go through this and make sure that you are keeping track of how much you're spending in terms of time and money. So coming up next week, we have a members-only webinar. If you're not a member, I'm going to tell you how you can become one in just a minute. But what we'll do is we'll work with you on your prospecting activities. And I'm going to ask our members to give us some examples in each of these categories that we can work on in the webinar next week. And we're going to talk about, of course, more specifically, if you have an idea or a project that you're working on with podcasting, webinars, trade shows, packages, or postcards, contact me right after the show or as soon as you can, and we'll be putting together some examples that we can use in next week's webinar. So the program that we have, I keep talking about our members. members of our masterclass. And our masterclass is a great group of people. We really enjoy them. It is not for you if you're already a client because you're already a member. But if you are not a client, you may want to stick around and listen to this. This is not for you if $279 a month would take food off your table. We've all been there, or at least I've been there, heaven knows. And if that's the place that you're in your business or your life, then we certainly understand that, and we will help you as much as we can with our free tools. But our membership, actually, we do charge for. And it's also not for you if you're not willing to spend some time and energy to get customers. We talked before about the easy button. If you're looking for the easy button, you should be selling pharmaceuticals, not aviation products. Right?
As we learned in one of our master classes that we go to and spend thousands of dollars on, every customer costs you money.
Exactly. Whether it's time or money.
It all boils down to dollars.
It all boils down to dollars, absolutely. So, and this is also not for you if you don't play well with others. We have some clients that prefer to do just one-on-one with us, and that is all they want to do, and that is just fine. They do better with our consulting programs than we do with our masterclass membership. But if you do play well with others, we have an option that saves you a whole heck of a lot of money over consulting. So, yeah, we had talked already about if you sell something, and if you don't have an unlimited marketing budget, and you all did not raise your hands when I asked if you have an unlimited marketing budget, so I assume you don't have an unlimited marketing budget, and you also understand that marketing is not magic. So those are the kind of people that we built the masterclass for. So success is really about what you know and who you know, right? You really want to save time, money, and reputation. We really could have ruined our reputation in that first couple of weeks when we were making cold calls, before we really knew anything about the industry and what we were doing. If you have a limited audience or a very specific audience, you really don't want to screw it up. It is so much easier when you have a group of people that you can lean on and say, here's what I want to do. Can you help me with this? Or can you look at this and tell me if I'm barking up the wrong tree? You want to make sure that you're focusing on what's relevant and not using email to try and prospect. As we had talked about earlier, if that's not working for you, there may be good reasons for that, and maybe other people have tried that, and you don't want to reinvent hot water. We cover one topic each month at a time. So, this month we're talking about prospecting. Next month we're going to be talking about building credibility and closing. So we do one thing at a time. So the outcomes of the masterclass, what we're expecting people to get and what people are actually getting, is a more robust, predictable, measurable, and stable marketing system each month.
Sandra has raised her hand.
Okay.
So Sandra, you can talk. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to keep going, and Sandra, if you want to type your question, or we'll get to you as soon as we can. You want a team of people that you can really lean on, to make those decisions and do things well with your projects. This is much less expensive than consulting, like we had talked about. ABCI charges $2,000 a day plus travel and expenses when we work with companies and things like that. So let's talk a little bit about our dream team. Some of them are on the line, and we're really glad to have you. Our facilitator for our Facebook group is Bert Boda, and he does our member highlights. He does an interview of one of our members a week. This week he interviewed Catherine Creedy, who we're also really thrilled to have in the group. She's a fantastic aviation writer. Jeff Stadola does our test flights. He'll be starting that in January, where he takes an ad and rips it to shreds. And he really is an honest-to-gosh fighter pilot. So, if you're scared, you should be. No, actually, he's a great guy, and he does really good blunt reviews and does great suggestions to make your web pages, your emails, your other things much better. And he's doing one of those a month for free for our members, which is fantastic. We've got Brian Pilcher, who is doing our tech tips. He's a real young guy, very hip. He knows a lot about CRM, social media, analytics, and other things, and answers questions and so forth. So we're really happy to have Brian. We're doing a book club where we take one of the best-selling books in sales or marketing and doing some discussions of these in the group. And obviously, some of these things apply to aviation and some of them do not. Like this 80/20 marketing book, I think it's fantastic, but they're assuming you have a larger audience size than you really do. So we do have to take some of those things fairly carefully with that. We have John Williams, our very own John Williams. Isn't he adorable? He does. He's a MBA and a finance nerd. He does all of our financing and things like that. So if you have questions about how much should I be spending on this and so on, then you can schedule office hours with us and ask those questions. And he's great at those sort of things. I can help you with your campaigns, organizing your campaigns, how to organize this in your company. You know, if this should be sales or marketing that's handling this particular task. If you're handling it all yourself, you know, how to make that workflow work better and so on. And I also answer questions about copy and design. So you've got a really great group of people in the aviation industry who can help you with just about anything you want to know.
Plus our back office staff.
Plus our back office staff. Yeah, sometimes we get them involved with things like SEO and other things that get more technical than is absolutely necessary. So these are some of the things that we've included with the masterclass, and all of these are on the order form that we'll get to in just a minute, so you can look at these at your leisure. And we just sent, hopefully some of you who are members have just gotten your 1-inch binder that has the tabs, the pockets, and all of those things. We want to make sure that you're building a library over time so that you're able to keep all this stuff in a way that is organized and makes sense to you. So these are some of the things that we put in the packet, the binders and the books for the book club. So if you're interested, it really is your choice. You know, do you want to be putting things together in a way that sometimes gets you a fish, or do you really want to put together a system that is working for you all of the time and that is consistently giving you better results? And it really depends on whether you're kind of doing this as a hobby or whether you're depending on this as a business, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So
hobbies are fun. Businesses make money, or at least they're supposed to.
Exactly. So you really want to give yourself every chance you possibly can. And what you need to do, if you're interested, and we've got a couple of bonuses if you want to get started today, where you can go into aviationbusinessconsultants.com/Jan 2016 order. I know that's really long, and I apologize for that. But it's just on our website. You go to aviationbusinessconsultants.com/Jan 2016 for January 2016 order. Then you can go ahead and fill that out. If you do that while we're talking, we actually have some pretty good bonuses. We've got a 30-day money-back guarantee. There's no long-term contract, so if you find that it's not for you, you can go ahead and drop out and lose nothing. You can actually get your money back for your first 30 days if you find that it's just not something that is working for you. All right, so here it is. The address is on the bottom, and we'll go ahead and stay on the line until as long as there are questions about this. But we're going to start a 15-minute timer here. Hopefully it will work. Yep, it did. I love technology when it works.
Yeah, when it works.
Exactly. Okay, so we'll answer questions about the masterclass or about anything else for as long as this timer is running. And I know some of you guys are still here.
Anything else pertaining to marketing.
Exactly. We'll answer any question in the world. Kidding. All right, so do we have questions?
Yes. So if I join the master class, you'll help me with the brochure I'm working on?
Okay, right, and that's Andy, right? Okay, so Andy, absolutely. If you join the master class, what you would do is you also get 1 hour of consulting a month. So what you would do is you'd schedule an hour with us and send us the brochure that you're working on, and that would be the hour that we spend with you during that month. So absolutely, we would help you with that brochure.
And how much does it cost?
Okay, it's $279 a month. And once again, it is not a long-term contract. So that's our silver level membership, which really is our best deal for getting the consulting time, getting the packages in the mail every month, and so on.
And can my buddy be my assistant?
Okay. Right.
What level person can benefit from the masterclass?
Okay.
So, a two-part question.
Okay. If your buddy is a dog, they probably wouldn't benefit a whole lot. So her buddy is this is Marie, right? Okay.
Yes, her assistant.
Her assistant. Okay. Yes, absolutely. We have a lot of assistants. Actually, we don't have a whole lot of assistants, but we have a few in the masterclass. The more your assistant knows about marketing, the better that is for you, because they can take over some of those marketing tasks, especially if you're doing complex things like podcasts and webinars. You're going to want to offload some of those tasks to your assistant. So the more they know about marketing, the better they're going to do. So absolutely, we'd be happy to have her. Oh yeah, and what level of person can benefit from the masterclass? I would say pretty much anybody who has at least an interest in marketing. They would need to at least understand some terms and have the motivation to sell stuff. So, if they have no interest, or if they're disgusted, one of those people that is disgusted by sales and marketing, they may not do all that well, simply because we're going to suggest shockingly that they sell stuff.
What a concept.
Exactly. So it's more a matter of attitude than aptitude. Anybody who has the right attitude will do well.
And
we also have CEOs in the masterclass, by the way. So even if it's somebody who doesn't have a whole lot of time, we try to make really good use of people's time. So they spend a few minutes on Monday working on Marketing Mondays, a few minutes on Wednesdays, actually an hour on Wednesdays doing the webinar Wednesdays, and then a few minutes on Friday catching up on their social media is really what we advocate. So we do have a lot of CEOs and company owners who are actively participating in the masterclass, which is wonderful. So that's great. They got skin in the game.
They must think so as well, because they're there.
Exactly. And they have the skin in the game, right? So they're the ones who benefit from the results.
And Andy says, I have a lot of marketing experience, but no aviation experience. Will the masterclass help me with making my work resonate better with an aviation audience?
Okay. I totally understand that, and I think that makes a lot of sense. A lot of folks are coming in with one of two areas of expertise. So they're either people who know a heck of a lot about aviation, but know not very much about marketing. So a lot of pilots, engineers, other kinds of folks who find themselves in the position of having to sell stuff. They're in marketing, so they need to learn about marketing. The other side is people who know a heck of a lot about sales and marketing, but maybe worked in real estate or insurance or some other kind of sales and marketing, and don't know all that much about aviation. And it's a weird little part of the world. We have different demographics, we have different vocabulary, all of those things. So the great thing about the masterclass is that people help each other. So the people who know a lot about marketing will give us some ideas that we've never thought of in the aviation industry. And some people who know a heck of a lot about aviation will let us know some weird things about King Airs, or things that we may not have known about, that will help us with those things.
I just noticed that I had bypassed the question in the dark past.
Okay.
Do you want to address it now?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll take questions on any topic, either the masterclass or any of the 6 marketing things we talked about, or new things too.
This was from Bert. It says, how does the podcast get broadcast to the audience we want to attract?
Okay. There are several services. The best known of them is iTunes. And what you need to do is create what they call an RSS feed. And Bert, I'm not sure how nerdy you want me to get here. But an RSS feed is the same as, if you've ever done a blog, you've done an RSS feed. So it's not that technical. But what you do is you channel your RSS feed to a podcast venue like iTunes or Stitcher or one of the other ones. And what they do is they broadcast those for you. So it's like free advertising. iTunes has millions, probably billions of people that tune in to iTunes or search it for those keywords. So you're basically getting free advertising using iTunes platform. So all you have to do is create it, make sure that whatever platform you're using pushes it to iTunes, and go from there.
Apparently you hit the button. He says, okay.
Fantastic. Okay, cool.
And then Tori says, what CRM software do you recommend? And I'm going to add, and you probably want to say at least why.
Okay. There are several that we recommend depending on the size of your company. The one that we use ourselves is Infusionsoft. And the reason is because we don't want to spend the money on Salesforce. And our company is not really big enough. So if you have a large sales team and you have multiple layers of commissions that you have to pay, then Salesforce is really the best tool on the market. If you are not in that boat, for medium-sized companies, we really like medium and small companies. We like Infusionsoft because it gives you most of the same features, and it's actually even better at some of the marketing automation, which saves us a lot of time. So when we want to send out a string of emails based on an action that someone takes, lots of those kinds of things, there's nothing better on the market than Infusionsoft. If you don't have or can't afford Infusionsoft, which is, I think, $199 a month for their lowest,
right,
for the smallest version of that. There are some less expensive options, and I don't know them well enough to name them in this session, but I'd be happy to talk with you about your needs and see what we can come up with. So maybe you can tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for. I know that's a question that a lot of people have had. In fact, there is a new question. Why not Salesforce? Or what's the cost of Salesforce? It's really not that expensive if you're only using it for one person. But the thing is, they charge you for every little thing. So, you get a license for one person, and that is of absolutely no use whatsoever. So it's like having one fax machine. In your company, you want people to be able to communicate about the contacts that you're making. So you have to have more than one license. So then the costs start adding up. And then you want reports. And then you want this. And then you want that. So, it pretty quickly adds up to $500, $600, $700 a month. Some companies that we know are paying several thousand a month for Salesforce.
Yes, and the other thing is as she indicated, their automation piece is lacking. They're going to try to compete with Infusionsoft in that area, and they purchased a company to do that. But as of our last discussions, it is not. They don't even recommend
it. They have some bubbles in their marketing automation. So we really highly recommend Infusionsoft. Honestly, we go to their Infusionsoft University and other events every year because we like to keep up with it.
And then a comeback from Bert. Should I put all of my contacts in CRM even if they don't all reply?
Yes, you absolutely should. And the reason is because you want to know who is replying and who's not. If you're using Infusionsoft or Salesforce or anything along those lines, you can do what is called a lead scoring report. So you can see who is opening your emails and who is visiting your website. So you may not see them replying. There's a lot of people out there that do a lot of research before they ever get in touch with you. There's people that have been in our CRM for years before they actually reply to one of my emails. But they've been opening all of our emails and they've been visiting our website enough that I can see their lead score. And I can see that it's worth the postage to send them a printed newsletter, right? So it really saves you a lot of money if you know who's dead and who's not, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. We have another question about LinkedIn advertising. LinkedIn is a great platform for sales, but I wouldn't say it's quite so great for marketing. What we love to use LinkedIn for is to do our phase two. So, after someone has contacted us, or, we've met somebody in a webinar like this or at a speaking engagement, we connect with them on LinkedIn and then follow them, and watch what they post and other kinds of things, and kind of try to develop a relationship, if there is some synergy there. So it's a great tool for that. Their advertising, I think, is kind of overpriced. What do you think, John? Are you?
Yeah, I think, well, it depends, again, on your cost of customer acquisition. I mean, on your lifetime value of the customer as to whether it's overpriced or not.
That's true. Yeah. So if you're getting better customers from LinkedIn, and this is an interesting thing to say, it sounds contradictory because LinkedIn was our number one performer, as far as the social media that more aviation professionals use, but we didn't include it in our top 6 prospecting activities because we really think it's more of a phase 2 activity, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes. And we didn't include several things because some of them are phase 2 and some are in phase 3.
Right. Okay. And yeah, so that's not to say that you shouldn't be using it. That just means you shouldn't be using it for prospecting. Okay.
So here's Mark says, Instagram, is it really the next big thing? And how does one buy likes? I dare say in this forum.
Right. You can dare say anything in this forum. We won't make fun of you much. No, actually, buying likes is something that we discourage, and not because of any ethical argument or anything else. It's because likes don't do you much good. I would much rather have and actually we had Mark Leeper, who we had on the program a couple of years ago, talked about how you can have $1 million 100-member audience, on LinkedIn, Facebook, probably Instagram as well, if it's the right 100 people. Because you can interact with them really, really well. And that's one of the great things that we like about these webinars, is that they're so specific. There's not all that many sales and marketing people in the aviation industry, so your questions actually get answered, most of them. I say that, and I know there's some that we haven't, but having a small audience is not a bad thing. And if you've ever tried to pay your rent with the number of Instagram likes you have, it doesn't work very well. So what really counts is the customers that pay you money. So those are the people that you really want to follow and that you want to interact with. So it's nice to have lots, and that improves your clout score maybe, and it improves your search engine optimization to a very small extent. But that's not nearly as important as the as the relationship. So I'd rather spend the time working on a smaller number of folks. We have another question about email. If you do have a good email list, how often should you be emailing them? And I'm going to answer that question first by saying that's not a prospecting activity. If somebody's already on your email list, you've already prospected them. Okay. So then you're into phase 2, and we're going to be talking a lot about phase 2 next month. And what that is building credibility and closing. So we email our list probably at least twice a week, most weeks, sometimes more. People are busy, and they're not going to see every single email that you send out. If we send more than about 3, we start to get unsubscribes. So I would say at least once, not more than 3 times, if somebody is actively involved in a purchase decision or something like that. Emails are easy to ignore, so you're not really bothering people all that much, but that's cool. Okay, another question about search engine optimization. That was our number 1 last year, and it's not even on the list this year. So this is the last question I'm going to answer because with timers run out, but as long as we're talking, that deal is still really good. We'll honor that for Aviation Industry Editorial Calendar. We'll send that out to you if you sign up during this call. So search engine optimization dropped off the list because last year and in all previous years, it was a really good deal. Very good cost-benefit ratio. of every dollar that you spent on search engine optimization was pretty likely to get you more customers. Two things have happened. One is that the search algorithms have changed a lot. And number two, it's such a fleeting thing. People come to your website, but often that's not enough to get them to take the next step and take your bait and do your call to action. You're much more effective at taking your next step on your call to action with a podcast or a webinar or a package or any of the 6 things that we talked about. So that's the reason that we didn't include SEOs, because it just doesn't have quite the impact to make the list, which is not to say that you shouldn't be doing it.
Absolutely should be doing it.
Yes, you absolutely should be doing it. It just didn't make the top 6. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for joining us. And I know there were questions that we didn't answer, but we will certainly get to those after the session. We really appreciate you being here, and we'll see you, members anyway, next week. Everyone else will have another free webinar next month on phase 2, which is building credibility and closing.
Have a great day. See you.
See ya.
You know you could.